just swipe the card and the insurer will pay for the bill. Yeah. Practically zero out of pocket for the policyholder. But they've they've seen the government, the regulators, and the insurers have seen what has happened because of this. There's been a lot of abuse, and when the medical inflation was high, it hit the insurers very hard. So more recently, over the years, there have been introduction of co-insurance. You can see in the different countries, and then more recently, deductibles. Yeah, and the one I like to highlight is Singapore. So Singapore has taken very harsh action. You know how expensive Singapore is, and you know Singapore has gotten so much more expensive in the last 5 years. The government, and this is true of healthcare services as well, and government is very conscious of this, very aware of this, and so now they've taken very brave action. There's a minimum deductible of 3,500 Singapore dollars. 3,500 Singapore dollars. That's about 1,800 US. Yeah, 1,700, 1,800 US dollars minimum deductible. So any hospital claim, the policyholder must pay the first 1,700 US. That's a very, very brave move. But that's the general direction that regulators are taking all across ASEAN. Next slide. And in Thailand, there's a particular problem with simple claims, what they call simple claims. And so it will be things like gastritis, it will be things like high fever, things like that. They're very, very minor claims which actually should be done outpatient, but it's being done inpatient in Thailand. So again, regulator sees this and is not delivering value to consumers. Those who are abusing the system, yeah, they will admit the in particular children, high fever, they will admit stomach ache, they will admit, especially if both parents are working, they rather not stay home and take care of the child. They rather just put the child in the hospital, free daycare. Then they can go to work and the child will be looked after in the hospital, right? So the claim frequency is 200% for children in Thailand, 200%, or it was 200%. So two claims every year per child. And that's for hospital insurance. Yeah, this is not outpatient, this is hospital insurance. So a lot of abuse happening there, and this is what has been implemented. So you can read for yourself there, right? But basically, if it's a repeat claimant and high loss ratio claimant, then the insurer can load the individual. The individual can be loaded 30 to up to 50% higher premium for those who are considered to be abusing the system. Yeah. So there's all this movement towards more cost sharing. Next slide. So the other area, there's a movement towards claims-based pricing. Yeah, and claims-based pricing is basically like your no-claim discount for motor. Essentially, if I make more claims, I will pay a higher premium. Yeah, in a simple way, in a simple way. The example that I have here is for Prudential in Singapore. Yeah, the Prudential Singapore was the first one to introduce it in the region, and coincidentally, we were the one who worked with Milliman was the one who worked with Prudential in Singapore to introduce this. In this particular example, if we focus on the table at the diagram at the top half, for age 1 to 54, yeah. So someone who is making repeated claims and repeated large claims can end up in level 5, and that's 3 times the standard premium. Where else someone who doesn't make any claims or repeated, is a basically healthy person, which is most of the policyholders actually, they can get a 20% discount. So in this case, the premium for an individual of the same age, yeah, they may be paying a premium that is 3 times higher than the standard or zero point 0.8 times the standard. That's the that's the potential variation in premiums. And of course, over time, different people will fall into different levels. Yeah, some will fall into level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, etc. But most people will actually be in the 20% savings category. Um, what we found happen with this, interestingly, is if we go to the next slide. Yeah, Prudential basically entered the medical market in Singapore in 2011, and their loss ratios rose very quickly for various reasons. It hit a high of 86% in 2016. Yeah, for various reasons, a lot of it due to competition, etc. Very, very competitive market. But they introduced this claims-based pricing product in 2018. And when very quickly after they introduced it, the loss ratio dropped to 69%. Now, the lower loss ratio is not because they were collecting so much more premium from the high claimants. No, it takes time, for people to move to level 5. It doesn't happen in 1 year, right? But what happened here in 2018 is there's an effect of a deductible, an implicit deductible. So just like motor insurance claim, no claim discount, right? If I make a claim today, tomorrow my premium will go up. And if it's an abusive claim or a large claim, my premium could go up a few steps, and it may take a few years before this premium comes back to standard premium or even a discount premium. So in my head, I'm thinking, ooh, do I really need to make this claim? So I have a stomach ache, I have gastritis. Should I just see the doctor outpatient instead of going to the hospital? Right? So the effect there is like a deductible. Only if the claim is large enough, then it makes sense for me to make a claim. But for small claims, low value claims, medically not so important claims, maybe it's better I don't claim. And so that's the effect of this. It's kind of like an implicit deductible. So that's the main reason why the loss ratio dropped so quickly. Yeah, within a month, within a year. And the nice part about this claims-based pricing is also that as premiums increase with age, this implicit deductible also increases with age. So we have a psychological implicit deductible that is increasing with age, which is actually what we want. So Prudential introduced this in Singapore. Their competitors followed in 2019, 2020. Prudential in Malaysia introduced it last year. They are happy with the results. And then insurer in Indonesia introduced it last year also. Actually, Prudential introduced it last year. I think very early last year. And then another insurer in Indonesia introduced it middle of last year. So it's something that it's gaining traction, gaining acceptance. Maybe I'll just stop there if anyone has any questions. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you fine, Pang. Does anybody have any questions from the audience here?
No? Okay.
Jerry,
If
do we have
not,
any questions online? Okay, continue, Pang.
all right. Okay, next slide. Okay, just one before. Oh, okay. Yes, all right. So the other movement is towards price transparency and alternative payment methods. Yeah, and I'll go through this in more detail in the next few slides. Um, this is just an example of what price transparency could look like. Yeah, this is what's happening in the US. I've taken this example from New Hampshire, it's the state of New Hampshire. What this website allows the policyholder to do is basically they can specify which health plan they're with, yeah, which type of plan they're on, and then can search for particular location, and then the website will give the what are the price estimates, yeah, for a certain type of surgery, certain type of procedure. It'll give the user the price estimates for different providers, yeah, and then it'll give an indication of the precision of the cost estimate. Yeah, how reliable is that cost estimate? How variable it is, and also for that particular provider, whether they tend to see more complex patients or more less complex patients, because of course more complex patients cost more. Um, and this has worked out very well. Yeah, very user friendly. Um, Next slide. Singapore was one of the first countries to try and do this kind of price benchmarking and allow price comparisons as well. So they first introduced it in 2018. Yeah, and mainly just for surgical fees. So only surgical fees, not the hospital fees. So focusing on the surgeon's fees, because that's where they found there was a wide variation in charges between surgeons. So Singapore surgeons very famous for charging according to where the person lives, for example. So basically, rich people get charged more surgical fees, and poor people, they are nicer to the poor people. Hopefully, they get charged lower surgical fees. But the government found that some of the private surgeon charges were just too unreasonable, very high. There was a one very high profile case of a princess from the princess of Brunei went for treatment in Singapore. Her bill came up to 23 million. 23 million Singapore dollars. Crazy. Yeah. But so anyway, they started this price benchmarking exercise, uh, published to the outside. It showed prices or 25th percentile, 50th, 75th percentile prices by hospital and by procedure. But internally, they actually have this information by doctor. And Ministry of Health Singapore was actually writing what they call love letters to the doctors. If they see a doctor charging consistently at the high end, they'll actually write a letter to the doctor and say, why are you charging so much? Why are you consistently at the high end of the scale? And the doctors will come back and they will uh, produce the detailed medical records, diagnostic results, MRIs, things like that, right, to justify the high charges. But usually, what happens is the following month, Ministry of Health will see those charges drop. So just letting the doctors know that the government is watching them basically changed behavior. In more recent years, the problem has extended to hospitals. Now hospitals are over, well, the charges have increased a lot and they're seeing a lot of funny things being done. So now hospital charges are part of this fee benchmark survey as well. So Singapore is the one that first started it. Hong Kong, we've actually been helping the Hong Kong government to introduce a price transparency mechanism similar to the US. And Malaysia is also in the process of doing this. So fee benchmarking and price transparency for everybody, yeah, for policyholders, for providers themselves, they can look at what their competitors are charging. This transparency is a movement that is happening. But next slide. Next slide. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. But one of the difficulties we have found in trying to do price benchmarking is trying to do a proper apples to apples comparison. So in this example, we look at gastritis. Yeah, this is just for gastritis. And when we do apply some machine learning algorithms to try and identify different buckets of gastritis, we actually found 18 buckets. So, for example, the bucket on the left, the lowest cost one, is gastritis that is treated as a day case. These are all hospital claims. Yeah, these are all hospital claims, no outpatient claims, no GP, general practitioner, or specialist claims. But bucket one is a day case. Yeah. Bucket 18 on the other hand, bucket 18 costs more than 5 times more, right, than bucket one. Bucket 18 is involves several days, overnight stay in hospital, several nights. It involves a lower scope. It involves an upper scope. It involves a biopsy. Yeah. So the first, intuitively, you would think that okay, it must be a very sick patient, complicated patient, right? But when we compare this across, in this example here, this is real data. When we compare this across 3 hospitals here, hospital D, F, and G at the bottom of the screen, yeah, you'll find for hospital D and F, most of their patients fall into bucket 7. Yeah. Well, mostly it's either bucket 1, very simple cases, yeah, day procedure, or just a day case, or bucket 7, kind of medium complexity, yeah. So medium cost as well, yeah. But if you look at hospital G, provider G, yeah, you can see that 60 plus 23, 83% of their cases, their patients fall into bucket 17 and 18. So I happen to speak to someone who used to work in hospital D. Yeah, and he was telling me that yeah, sometimes these doctors, they, gastritis patient, they just want to do everything, just maximum do everything to the patient. And we tell them, if you want to practice this type of medicine, please don't do it in a hospital. Go somewhere else. We don't want the bad reputation associated with our hospital. Go somewhere else. And obviously, they're going to hospital G. Yeah. But this data is several years old. I'm told today hospital G has changed their practice. Yeah. But this is just an example of when we are doing price benchmarking, it's like we really have to be careful to be able to compare apples to apples. Yeah. Otherwise, even if we are comparing the price of gastritis, of treating gastritis, within gastritis alone, there can be yeah. That over here you can see like there could be 18 different ways. Yeah. So when we are price benchmarking, we need to separate complexity or intensity from price. Any questions? Okay. If not, then the next topic is.
Hey, Pong, we do have a question.
Okay, great.
Sorry, a bit late. The first one is regarding to when we apply certain like cooperation or transparent in pricing, there will be a reflect in behavior of using like increasing claims and then we revise the premium, for example. But that should be in two ways. If there's no claim happening, whether we reflect to like deduct the premiums or certain discount, I actually see that in some cases. I'm not sure whether the market they run to that model. Is the first question. And second question on the provider comparisons. What we observed so far is that when we do the comparison, it should come from a certain base. Normally, we will base on the ICD code, for example, a similar diagnosis, similar treatment. It should be in the same, like apple to apple in that scenario. So in the pockets you mentioned there, whether we put some, like criteria for that, for better comparison in pricing. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So for your first question, yeah, I know I think I understand what you're saying. You're talking about some products that allow 10% or 20% no claim discount. Is that right?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yes. Yeah. So those are very simple models. This is kind of similar, except it is making it a bit more complicated. And also, if we go back to that slide, I think it's slide 6. Yeah. Okay. So the no claim discount products are very simple. So 1 year no claim, get 10% discount. 2 years no claim, get 20% discount. And then maximum of 20% discount. And if I make a claim, I go back to 0. Yeah. So that's quite simple. I wish I had another slide here for you. Yeah. But basically, the advantage of this is similar, except we have more levels here. And the rules for going up and coming down, going up to 5 and coming down, actually here they are in the top diagram, right? If you include the 20% savings, standard premium, and going up to level 5, there are 7 here. In the UK, this type of no claim discount system is standard. Everybody does it. And they have like 14, 15, 16 levels. Very many levels. Yeah. The advantage of having more levels is you can, more levels basically with the appropriate rules, the appropriate rules of how someone goes up a level and how someone comes down. The advantage of that is what we're trying to do is each level, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create a proxy for health status. Actually, there are two. There are two things we're trying to achieve here. One is we are trying to create a proxy for health status. Yeah. So less healthy people eventually end up at the lower level, and more healthy people end up at the higher level. Yeah. And we've done analytics on this as well to try and decide on how many levels and the rules for going up and coming down these different levels. It gets a bit more complicated than the simple 10, 20%. But we're trying to achieve something that at the end of the day, people are paying premiums according to their health status. The level is a proxy for the health status. The second thing is the levels can be, and the rules of how to go up and come down the levels can be used to reinforce some strategic things the insurer is trying to do. So, for example, if it's abusive type of claims, then it can move a certain number of levels. Or if some of them, they combine it with network and non-network, which we'll talk about next. If you're going to a network hospital, then you move you move fewer levels up. But basically, the rules can be linked to the strategic objectives of the company to manage claims. Yeah, so there's more flexibility lah, as opposed to the simple 10%, 20%. And then your second question was on the ICD codes and the trying to achieve more apples to apples price benchmarking, right? So what we find is that at least for some ICD codes, just the ICD code alone is not refined enough. So within that one ICD code, there can be like multiple ways of treating that disease, and it's difficult to benchmark two different hospitals just based on ICD code. We need to look at the within the ICD code, the mix of severity as well. So gastritis was the one example there, but I'm not sure if that sufficiently answers your question.
Yeah, that's a good thumbs up. Pang, there's a few other questions online. I'll quickly go through them. Does claim-based pricing in Singapore require regulatory approval?
Yes, it does, and it was approved. And you can imagine, for Prudential Singapore, when they first introduced this product, they were the first to introduce this product in the market. When we worked with them, the CEO at that time, he really wanted to shake up the market. They were losing money very badly. The market was losing money badly and cannot continue like that. So he was very brave. He wanted to make a change. And this was really quite a big change. We presented several options to him, something that is less steep. This one is going up to 3 times the standard. Yeah. We presented to him things that were less steep, but no, he wanted to go this steep. And they had to get approval from the government. And the government said, the government knew all the problems that's happening. Basically, you have this blank check product, and the private hospitals in Singapore, which are all listed companies, conglomerates, they have to report to shareholders. Basically, they were taking advantage. And the government was very supportive of this CEO, and they told him, wow, okay, very brave, but if you want to do it, we'll support you. And they went ahead. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of respect to him.
Great. Another question is, for claims-based pricing, is the adjustment applied at an individual policy level or at a group or portfolio level? And a following question from that is, how frequently can premiums be updated based on emerging claims experience, and what is the regulator's view on the appropriate frequency and fairness of such adjustments?
Okay. First of all, the rules are applied on a portfolio level, right? The rules are set at the portfolio level, and it applies to everybody the same way in the portfolio. But obviously, as a result of these rules, each individual may pay a different premium. Yeah. So it's not like we are setting rules to discriminate against one single person. We are not. The same rules apply to everybody. Yeah. So in that sense, it's portfolio. But at the end of the day, it does mean that certain individuals of the same age will pay more premiums than another individual, and which to me is fair. Yeah. Maybe I just take a bit more time. I may need 45 minutes in total to complete everything. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Queen?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Just one last question. For claims-based pricing in slide 6, how are the increment steps? For example, 1.4, 1.6, 1.82, 3 for age 1 to 54 determined and justified to regulator?
Yeah, there are various calculations that we do to simulate how it will impact existing policyholders as they go through this system. And then at the end of the day, we can demonstrate that what we're achieving at the end of the day is that unhealthy lives do pay more, healthy lives pay less. And then also we can illustrate the customer journey even for abusive policyholders. Policyholders who are always going in for minor conditions unnecessarily. What happens to them? What is their premium journey? Yeah. So we can illustrate. Yeah, we can illustrate all that, how it's equitable. Incidentally, we've done consumer market research in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong. And when we ask policyholders, do you think it's fair for unhealthy people to pay a higher premium than healthy people? Unhealthy people to pay more than healthy people? They say yes. Everybody says yes. Yeah, it's just intuitively fair. Of course, the major question is how much more, right? And that from one regulator to another regulator, they'll have different points of view. Malaysia is more conservative than Singapore. They want a narrower band. But it may sound not fair. It may sound not fair, but what we are doing here is we are basically trying to create a proxy for health status. So what that means is when someone gets older, so as we age over time, currently we just pay a higher premium. And at age 70, say age 80, we pay a very high premium. Yeah. And what we find is that lapse rates at age 70 are something like 40-50%. 40-50% lapse rates. Because remember, this is a voluntary product. Yeah. People can lapse at any time and go back to the universal healthcare system, to the government program. They don't have to stay in the private program. So what we find is that in the voluntary program for individuals, when we reach age 70, 80, lapse rates are like 40-50%. Yeah, all the healthy lives, they are paying very high premiums. Why? I have not made a single claim. Why am I paying such high premiums? Well, they are paying high premiums because what we find is that out of 10 policyholders at the elderly ages, out of 10 policyholders, 4 will make a claim. 4 out of 10. And these 4 people will make not just one claim each, they'll make 10 claims. These 4 people will make 10 claims, and these 10 claims are expensive claims. We are talking about cancer and things like that. And who is paying for all these expensive claims? The 6 healthy lives, 6 out of 10. Yeah. So they have to pay a very high, they're basically, there's a high burden on them. And this defeats the purpose of risk pooling. Why are they lapsing? Because it doesn't make sense for them to be paying such a high premium. They are healthy. They may be 70 years old, but they are so healthy, they could still be running 10-kilometer events. They could be playing tennis. They are not biologically aged 70. They could be like biologically aged 50. But they have to pay premiums for all these unhealthy lives, so they lapse. So if we can charge premiums more in line, not completely in line, cannot be completely in line, but a bit more in line with health status, we can keep the healthy people in the system. And if we can keep the healthy people in the system, the premium for the unhealthy may not go up that much because we have more healthy people in the system who make no claims, but they are paying premiums, but just a lower premium. We need to keep them in the system. At the moment, 40-50% lapse is unsustainable. Eventually, as all the policyholders age, the whole system will just collapse. So I think the regulators understand this also. It's something necessary to make the system more sustainable and to be more in line with the concept of risk pooling in a voluntary system. In a mandatory system, doesn't matter. You can charge anything you want. No one has any choice.
Great. Thanks, Pang. That was all the questions we have. I don't know if you wanted to continue with slides.
Okay, sure. So let's keep going down. So, okay, so there's this movement towards provider networks. Yeah. And the first prominent one that I've seen in ASEAN is with AIA in Malaysia. So they've started this product. They call it the Smart Panel Plan. So usually, traditionally, insurers all have panels. Yeah. But usually the hospitals that are outside the panel means they are the hospitals that either are naughty, right? They are doing stuff that is not so good, but usually it's just a small number of hospitals, not many. And also hospitals that are not don't have agreement for direct settlement or direct billing. So those are usually the hospitals traditionally that are out of network. But then AIA basically has created this within the direct settlement network of hospitals. They've created inside even smaller panel called the Smart Panel. So Smart Panel, I don't know the details, but I would guess that they are mostly hospitals that are giving AIA good discounts, right? So they are giving good discounts, then AIA prefers their policyholders to go to these hospitals. On top of that, of course, there will be other criteria about service levels, quality, etc., etc. Yeah, but I suspect a lot of the one of the most important criteria will be price, right? Price or discounts. So they've got this smart panel, right? And if a policyholder goes to the smart panel, they pay zero co-insurance. But if they go outside the smart panel, right, they have to pay 20% co-insurance, which may be cashless. Or if they really go outside the cashless panel, it may be on a reimbursement basis. Yeah. But basically, it's cost sharing if go outside. And I think this is very good because I can tell you in the Malaysian environment, we can have 1,000 people buy the same product, right? But not this 1,000 people all don't have the same behavior in terms of which hospitals they use. Depending on where they live, some of these 1,000 people may be going to the most expensive hospitals, and then some of them may be going to cheaper hospitals, but they're all paying the same premium, buying the same product. So there's a lot of implicit cross subsidy. So what this product is doing is it's saying, hey, if you want to choose to go expensive, you have to pay a bit more. In this case, out of pocket. Yeah. So this product has a cheaper price, and AIA offered this as an option to their policyholders. So you're on our regular product, which doesn't have a panel. But if you opt for the smart panel option, we give you a 20% discount on your premium. You pay 20% lower premium. But if you go outside the smart panel, you have to pay 20% co-insurance. And what we found is that the people who exercise this option are policyholders at the lower end. So the lower end policyholders, they are budget conscious, they exercise this option. Those that they say, no, I don't need to save 20% on my premium. I just want to go wherever I want to go. It's okay. Then they just they'll just not exercise this option. Yeah. So it's basically giving more customer choice, and it's creating a wider range of products, different price points for different budgets. That's what it's doing. There have been other insurers who have followed this concept since. AIA Thailand has introduced this, but they were super brave. They didn't introduce it as an option. This is the only product that they sell in Thailand now. There's also um, a company in Indonesia, Pru Indonesia, has introduced something similar, but in that case, it's 20% loading on the premium if they make a claim outside the panel. Those that claim within the panel, there's no loading on the premium. But there's a movement towards networks, right? And I was speaking to the CEO of a private hospital, and this is with regard to Malaysia. And he was saying, wow, this panel product is giving us headache. It's giving us headache. Why? Because they want to be in the smart panel, but if they want to be in a smart panel, then they have to comply with certain things. And maybe I bring you to the last slide. Yeah. So this is something we're working on in Malaysia for the Malaysian government. Malaysian government wants to introduce a basic product. A basic product. They call it a base product. So it'll be a low-cost basic product that is a standard product for the whole industry. The insurers can sell any other product they want as normal, no problem, but they must include this basic product as an option. So whatever product they want to sell, policyholders will still have a choice of this basic product, which is standard across the industry, standard premium rates. Basically, government wants to make something low cost available to everybody as an option. And part of the design, we've been working with the government on this actually. There are various things we're trying to include in this product to try and control medical costs. I just want to focus your attention on two main things. One is this product will not pay according to fee for service, not according to the itemized bill, but according to packages or DRGs, diagnostic related groups. So the government will negotiate a package price, yeah, with the hospitals. That's one. The other is just continuing on from the previous slide. There will be a provider network because this is a basic product. Yeah, it's a basic product. It means you can't just go to any hospital you want. You can't go to the 5-star hospital, right? This is a basic product, low end as an option to more of the population, yeah, who cannot afford something with a richer premium. So you can't just go anywhere you want, but the government is negotiating with all the hospitals. Of course, the quality must be there, service levels must be there, but it must be in the appropriate budget range. Yeah, so all this will be negotiated with the hospitals. Plus, the hospitals will have to comply with the clinical practice guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health Malaysia. So they follow certain medical protocols. Yeah. So gastritis doesn't mean every gastritis or 80% of gastritis patients will end up with 3-night stay, upper scope, lower scope biopsy. No, there will be medical protocols. Yeah. And all this can only be done on a voluntary basis. Everything is voluntary, not mandatory. All this can only be done on a voluntary basis if we have a network. Yeah. You don't want to do it, okay, don't do. We are not forcing you to do it. But if you want to be part of the group and recognized as being part of the network, you have to comply. Yeah, so it's creating issues, dilemmas for the private hospitals who are used to just doing anything they want. Yeah, so that's the power of the network. Okay, I'll just end it there, and then I think there were some other questions.
Yeah. So the two other questions online: why is pricing based on claim ratio acceptable, but not on other factors such as region or income level? Also, as you mentioned, the main principle of insurance is risk pooling. Moving more to groups with high claim ratios goes against the principle, potentially making these groups uninsurable. This is something P&C insurance already experiences, for example, in areas where flood or earthquake coverage is unavailable.
Yeah. Okay. Good points. Can you repeat the first, or maybe I'll answer the second question first. Yeah. So basically, we're talking about events. We're talking about events where we want to keep it to within, let's say, risk pooling. Yeah. Risk pooling only works if we have people who don't make claims paying for people who make claims. Right. So what do you think that ratio should be? What do you think that ratio should be? If it's 5 out of 10 making claims, is that risk pooling? Do you think risk pooling will work as a principle? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think risk pooling has to be more like 1 in 10. So you have many fortunate people pooling their money together to pay for the one unfortunate person. But at the moment, the way premiums are charged is according to age. Yeah. And age is not the only determinant of good or bad risk. Yeah. There is a strong correlation, but what we find actually is that the majority of individuals' medical expenses in their life, the majority of their medical expenses actually occurs in the last 12 months of their life. The majority. If you look at the premium curve, wow, age 30, age 40, the premium is nothing compared to age 80, age 90. It's nothing. So majority of our medical expenses occurs towards the end of our life. The only question is, some of us, lucky or unlucky, is at age 60. Some at age 70, some at age 80, some at age 90. But it's going to happen. And it's going to be expensive. Yeah. So how do you risk pool something like this? Actually, what we need to do is save. We need to save for it. Yeah. Eventually, someone has to pay for it. But realistically, if to avoid cross subsidy between young and old, or between different generations, then what we need to do really is save for it. Yeah, not so much an insurance problem, a savings problem. But what we can do to risk pool, the risk pool part is, well, we can have something where the deductible increases with age over time. So at the older ages, we have a higher deductible. Yeah, at the older ages, we have a higher deductible. And then the probability of a claim occurring above that deductible comes back down to 1 in 10. So risk pooling can happen there, right? For the large claims. But for the not so large claims below the deductible, the policyholder needs to save to pay for that deductible. So it's a combination of savings for what can be manageable and risk pooling, insurance, risk protection against large claims. That I think would probably work the best. That will probably work the best. Can you remind me of the first question?
I think you have mentioned why is pricing based on claim ratio acceptable, but not on other factors such as region or income?
Okay. So if you talk about claims-based pricing, we are moving the premiums according to claims behavior, which, if done properly, is just a proxy for health status. It's just a proxy for health status. But you're right. You're right. Apart from health status, what can differentiate costs could be something like region, right? It could be something like region. But that something can be done. Technically, it easily can be done, but it's a question of whether it can be implemented. Is it something that Yeah, whether you can implement it is it something that is practical? But yeah, certainly, region-based premiums makes a lot of sense.
One last question. Any negative societal cost of such network system, that is, hospitals increase the price for non-insured customers, or some behavior from hospital create negative impact to people or society?
I think from network, yes, could be, in the sense that we already see it everywhere. If, let's say, a network product reduces the costs to the people who buy the network product, and usually it's the poor people who buy the network product, then what we would expect to see is that for people who don't want the network product, they will have to pay a higher premium. Yeah, because previously they were being subsidized by the people who bought the same product but were spending less, were going to cheaper hospitals. The other thing that's just um, the first iteration, but deeper than that, if the network product causes providers to have bigger discounts, right, for this budget product, they will try and get more money from their other patients. We see that all the time, very very real. They will try and get the money from other patients. What it does mean is that those who go for the budget product will pay less at the end of the day, and those who go for a richer product will end up paying more. Um, that is something that I think will happen, and it will put pressure on those on the richer products to find ways to control claims. But I think ultimately the old products where the insurer pays from the first dollar, unlimited benefits or very high limits, etc., eventually those products, basically there's too much moral hazard, and too much moral hazard there. And if other products keep having more controls and share responsibility with the policyholder, yeah, to try and manage medical costs, everyone has to contribute. Provider has to do things to manage costs. Policyholder agrees, they have to pay part of the bill, and they also want to manage costs. Insurer, of course, wants to manage costs, and if everyone wants to manage costs, then the product that basically pays for everything, eventually, I think they will suffer. They will have to suffer. But I think that's the reality. Those type of products are just promising too much and will be taken advantage of.
Pang, anything else?
That's it for me.
Any final questions for Pang from the audience? All right. Well, Pang, thank you very much for your time and your very informative remarks. You added real value this afternoon. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.
Bye. I'm exhausted from listening to him. That was tiring. It's interesting, the question that came in about why is like that claims-based premium rating, excuse me, why is the claims-based premium rating acceptable? Because I was sitting here thinking the same thing. And then it sort of dawned on me. Like if somebody introduced the claims-based pricing in the US, it would be the regulators would be all over it. No way. And I was trying to think, why is this okay in Singapore? And it dawned on me. In Singapore, the private health insurance is augmenting an underlying public health insurance where everybody has health insurance. In the US, and so many of the things I described that happen regulatory in the US, we have no public health insurance unless you're over 65 or you're poor, So the regulators are kind of trying to force the private health insurance market to be the public health insurance market in a way. And I thought that was interesting. But he had quite a lot of interesting things to say about provider networks as well. Okay. Where are we? Okay. So after Pong's whirlwind of energy, this might come across as a little basic, but we'll dive in anyway because he went into some specific and fairly advanced and sophisticated specific risk management techniques being used in Southeast Asia today. I'm going to talk about them at a pretty generic and basic level here real quick. So in health insurance, when I talk about risk management strategies, I'm talking about basically 5 things: underwriting, pricing and premium setting, claims management, provider management, and reinsurance. And on the pricing and premium setting and provider management, we just heard from Pang concrete examples of what we mean by that. So the claims-based pricing is a pricing technique used that is being used apparently in Singapore that manages risk for exposed to the exposure. The network stuff that he talked about in both Malaysia and Indonesia, that's provider management, again, to manage risk. So I'm not going to go too slowly over these. Underwriting, I think, is fairly obvious. We're evaluating the risk at issue, and it can be looking at simple things like age and health history or health characteristics. In Pang's example, they were using claims history as sort of a proxy for health history, and this informs specific pricing for the group. And it avoids adverse selection. Adverse selection at issues is the better your underwriting, the less adverse selection you'll have. But better underwriting is also expensive administratively, so there's always a trade-off between the value of the underwriting and the cost of it. Pricing, again, we've talked about pricing at length already. Pang talked about a sophisticated and novel pricing strategy being used in Singapore, the claims-based pricing, and the notion here is that use the premium rates to either charge high risks more, the premium rate structure to charge the high risks more, or get them to lapse out of them. Claims management, of course, this is another key area of risk. And so it's, claims management is just how we pay claims, how our claims department pays claims. And at the very basic level, claims management involves claims adjudication. So somebody's reviewing, are these claims submitted? Do they appear valid? Are they covered services? Are there errors? Is there potential for fraud? And I'll talk for a minute about fraud because I know it's of interest to some of you. Claims fraud is a ongoing and it's a tricky topic to address effectively. And there's nobody's perfect. It's an ongoing problem. I don't know what your experience in Vietnam has been, but in other markets, the claims fraud typically comes from not entirely all the time, but typically comes more from the provider rather than the insured member. That you've got providers with lower ethical standards, either doing fraudulent billing practices or some other hijinks, and therefore getting higher reimbursement without valid ways. And part of the claims adjudication process in real time as the claims are being paid is to look for obvious flags, but the obvious flags are not always the obvious flags are often not good enough. A second very common practice for managing claims fraud is a claims audit, where a professional team skilled at forensic accounting and skilled at and knowledgeable about health insurance claims will go back and review all the claims paid or a sample of claims paid over a period of time in an insurer's claims department, and they're looking for errors, just are the claims being paid correctly, and also evidence of fraud. And so these claims auditors are kind of expert at looking for telltale signs. What those signs are pretty complicated. It's a very detailed and nuanced area that's not my expertise, but some of it's obvious. So if a provider bills twice for the same procedure on the same patient on the same day, there's probably something wrong there. That's a kind of an easiest and obvious example. Or if they bill twice for the same procedure on successive days or something like that for the same patient. There's more advanced algorithmic approaches where you're looking at more broader patterns of behavior from the physician group or the hospital system, and by then you're getting into things like AI applications and machine learning, which is way over my head. But it is a very advanced topic that is of getting considerable interest in other markets and considerable capital investment as well. Provider management, we talked about that. Hank talked about that at some length. I think that's apparent now, and we won't dwell on this. And then reinsurance, I think we're all familiar with reinsurance, right? Because reinsurance is not just constricted to health insurance. Reinsurance is an obvious way to spread risk and manage risk. In health insurance, it's typically specific stop loss, so claims over a certain size for an individual, or aggregate stop loss, claims on the entire block. And this is important because it spreads high risk catastrophic risk among a broader market segment. Okay, are we ready for a break? I know we're a little early. Let's break now because I need a stretch, and then we'll come back. I've got one last little section to do, and we can wrap this up. It looks like we'll wrap up a bit early. All right, so how long is our break? Let's get back in 20 minutes. Yeah, 2:45, back at 2:45. Do they have the drinks set up outside?